Welcome back to Link by Golf. I'm your host Ross McGuire. On this week's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Gary Nicol. Gary's a highly accomplished golf coach, and I'm sure you'll enjoy hearing about his life and how he got into coaching, and then how his journey's progressed from there. So, without any further delay, let's go over to Gary. With me today is Gary Nicol. Really delighted to have you on the show, Gary. Thanks for joining.
My pleasure. Looking forward to having a chat.
And the way the show starts every week, Gary, is to just ask the person where they're from and how they get into golf.
Born in Glasgow, spent I think a year and a day there. Not my choice to either start or leave there. My dad was working in Glasgow at the time, so we moved there from, or they moved there from Edinburgh. Mum, dad, and sister moved there from Edinburgh. Originally from Edinburgh, I grew up in Balerno, just outside Edinburgh.
Okay. And how did you get into golf?
Well, my late father was a golf writer, so he was a football writer and a golf writer, but most of his working life was a golf writer for the Daily Record, Golf Monthly, various publications around the world. So, yeah, Alistair Nicol was his name. And, yeah, I guess golf was always around the house, and there was always golf books and golfers and golf magazines and stuff. So it was kind of inevitable, really. Although I wanted to be a footballer, to be honest,
Right.
initially. Football has always been my kind of greatest passion. But it turns out it wasn't as good as I thought it was. So I think we've all experienced that at some
I
point,
think
right?
that happens to a lot of people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So golf, as I say, was always kind of in my life and around the house. So no great surprise, I ended up working in the golf industry.
Absolutely. And where did you start playing then if you were in the Edinburgh area?
I played at Rathhill Park as a junior.
Lovely course.
Yeah, but actually, before I joined there, my dad was a member there, but I'd learned to play golf on the wee nine-hole kids course at North Berwick.
Oh, okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, and I haven't been on it for a decade, shall we say, a few decades. But I can still remember every hole vividly. I used to go around until I was dizzy.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So how long did you stay at Rathhill Park and how did your game develop there?
How long was I there? Probably 5, 6 years. So I played at Dunbar a bit as well.
Right.
So Rathhill was great because the greens were tiny, and so you became pretty good at hitting greens. And if you didn't, well, we didn't really have much of a range. With a short practice ground, you couldn't really hit more than a 7 or an 8 iron. But we had a practice bunker and a chipping green, and a putting green. So we all became pretty good chipping and putting as juniors. We had a
Yeah.
really strong junior section. There was a lot of really good guys and decent players. So I mean, some of my fondest memories of golf were playing junior team matches. I used to love doing that. It was great fun.
Absolutely. And Rathhill's a brilliant little course. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, fun.
fantastic.
It's
Great
good fun.
clubhouse as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and just across from Dalmahoy, I played at Dalmahoy for a few years, so
Right.
always
Okay. Well,
enjoyed
I was
going
an
across to
assistant there.
Rathhill.
I went on to be an assistant there later.
Oh, there you go,
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Mm.
And that takes us into turning professional. So, where did you turn professional originally?
My first job, I got an opportunity to go and work at Royal Guernsey Golf Club in the Channel Islands.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, didn't really see that one coming. The guy who was the head pro there, a guy called Norman Wood, was a friend of my dad's, and they were at a tournament somewhere chatting away, and Norman was asking how I was getting on with my golf, and Dad said, "Oh, he's doing okay." I said, "Well, I've got an opening for an assistant if he fancies coming down and working for me." And well, so I thought, yeah, why not? Just yeah, I'll give it a go, see what it's all about. And Norman's a very good player. I mean, his claim to fame, well, a couple of claims to fame. He won the Italian Open, played on tour for a number of years, and
My goodness.
he played in the 1975 Ryder Cup, and he beat Maurice
Wow.
Reveal 2-1 in the singles.
What a
So
record that is.
yeah, he was a pretty good player. He was always very keen for us to play as well. So that
Yeah.
was good. That was a good. I was only there for a season,
Uh-huh.
and we were encouraged to play and to get in and to do some teaching or coaching as well, because the way things were down there as a non-resident, a non-islander, there were two housing markets. You could either rent or buy on the closed market, which was really cheap, or the open market, which was really expensive. And as a
Yeah.
non-islander, my accommodation amounted to more than my earnings. So
My
our
goodness.
wages were less than what it cost to live there. So we
Wow.
had to go out and we did a lot of 9-hole playing lessons. We basically played for a fee.
Uh-huh.
So you either got paid twice or you got paid if you won and got paid nothing if you lost. So you soon became pretty good at scoring for 9 holes.
That's an incentive, isn't
We
it?
did a bit of coaching on the back of that.
Wow. So where did you go from Guernsey then? Where did you head from there?
Came back to Scotland. I had a couple of interviews, one at Turnberry and one at Dalmahoy. And bearing in mind I lived in Ballerna, well, that was a whole lot closer to Dalmahoy than it was to Turnberry. So
Yeah,
it was quite an easy decision to make at the time.
brilliant. And what's your recollection of Dalmahoy at the time?
Well, I played quite a bit there as a junior.
Right.
Growing up at Ratho, just literally, as you know, across the road. So I knew the courses really well. I loved the big course, as it was always known, the East Course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had 3 good years there. When I first started, it was still the old original golf club. There was
Right.
no real hotel or
Oh,
country
okay.
club or leisure centre or anything like that.
Wow.
So the pro shop used to be up by the first tee, and what used to be the putting green, which is now all changed. So yeah, no, I had 3 good years there, and then one day I got a phone call from one of the other assistants I'd worked with in Guernsey, just to see how I was doing, chatting away, and he said, "How do you find?" I said, "I'm in Austria now, teaching full time. I've got more work than I can cope with. How do you fancy coming out?"
Wow.
So I think I had to work 30 days notice, but a couple of weeks holidays. So within 2 weeks of saying yes, I was on a plane from Edinburgh to London, London to Vienna, Vienna down to Graz. And it wasn't until we were flying over the Alps that I thought, shit, I can't actually speak German. This might be a challenge.
My
So
goodness.
yeah, I had a year there. Then I got offered a job in Hamburg, so I had a couple of years there teaching full time, and then went back to Austria. So I was there from about between Austria and Germany between 91 and 95. So
Wow.
I learned at the coal face, if you like, just grinding out hours and hours and hours on the range and on the golf course, coaching, doing playing lessons, whatever. So I guess yeah, I've been a full time coach since 91.
Uh-huh.
91 I think. So yeah,
And would you
quite a while.
say you were always minded to go down the coaching path? Did you look at
Yeah,
playing
I
a
was
bit
always
more
more
or?
interested in what other people were doing than what I was doing, to be honest. I mean, when I was assistant at Dalmahoy, I played an awful lot of golf with Andrew Oldcorn and the late Adam Hunter,
Yeah.
who were playing full time on tour then. I'd actually played I played in the same junior team as Andrew's brother Alistair. So
Right.
I actually caddied for him a little bit in my late teens. So I got to see what golf was like kind of inside the ropes on tour at a pretty young age. I think I caddied in the Open in '86 at Turnberry, and it was
My
probably 18.
goodness.
So it was, yeah, I kind of learned the hard way what to say and what not to say on the golf course in tournament conditions.
And what a player Andrew Alcorn was as well. And he still plays a lot, doesn't he?
I went on to coach him for about 12 years and he had 3 wins, including the PGA at Wentworth in 2001, which was a bit of a career highlight at the time for sure.
Yeah, so you were actually coaching him at that time?
Yeah. Well, because we'd played so much golf together and I'd caddied for him,
Yeah.
he figured out that I kind of knew his swing as well as anyone, probably better than he did. So in early 95, I mean, I'd worked with him a little bit, 93, 94, when I was home from Germany or whatever, or Austria. And then 95, he said, look, you fancy coming out for a few tournaments coaching me? I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. So we went out to Dubai. That was 90, God, that's 30 years ago. First I went to Dubai, which looked a little different then, let me tell you.
Yeah, I bet it did.
And he did quite well. And then it was almost like became a bit of a lucky charm. And when I was there, he tended to play well. So, I often joked about the fact I packed a bag in 95 and didn't unpack it until the end of 2011, which was not in the plan, I have to say.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so I guess did that then open up the doors to be coaching effectively a lot of tour pros and stuff as well?
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the tour is a funny place. If someone starts to do well, all of a sudden they've got a brilliant coach. And monkey see, monkey do. They want a bit of it, and they're obviously very good players to get out and tour in the first place, but
Uh-huh.
it's a difficult environment to succeed in. It's really so competitive, always has been.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple of guys said, can you have a look, see what you think? And then before you know it, you've got another couple of players on board. And then I soon learned that you have to say no at some point. It's very
Right.
flattering when a player asks you if you can help them, but I always like to watch them play as much as I also try
Uh-huh.
to spend much time on the course with them, watching them actually play as I
Right.
did range. And when you've got 4, 5, 6 different players and you want to
Uh-huh.
watch them all play 9 holes every day in tournament conditions, then that adds up to extremely long days and difficult to time and coordinate.
Absolutely. And so you were
So
doing a lot of travel, obviously, as well.
yeah, I've travelled probably on average about 25 weeks of a year for about 16 years,
Wow.
which
My
sounds
goodness.
fantastic, but
No, it
it's
sounds hard, actually.
yeah. I mean, I guess I was kind of everyone around me was doing the same thing, so you didn't really think of it as doing anything different. Plus, growing up, my dad was traveling a lot with his job, so I
Yeah,
guess
of
golf
course.
and travel were always part of the life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, any other, obviously, Andrew's achievements sort of
Yeah,
standing out there. Any other ones that stand out with people you were coaching through those
yeah. I
years?
mean, any time you coach someone who wins a tournament, it's a big deal. And I was thinking about just this the other day. I've been fortunate enough to coach players who've won on different tours in 4 different decades, despite being only 32. And I'm 57 now.
My
Um,
goodness.
coached winners in the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and the 2020s as well. So
Wow,
yeah, quite proud of that. I hadn't really thought about it until quite recently, and I thought, oh, that's actually not bad. That. So yeah,
that's
anytime someone
incredible.
wins a tournament, it's a big deal for sure.
Yeah, wow, that is really awesome. So, also though, I noticed that your philosophy has probably developed. So, what kind of things would you say at the start as a coach have changed now in your setup and what you do with the players?
Yeah, when I first started coaching full time, the early 90s, it was all about technique and positions. And I probably made the same or passed on the same not poor information, that's the wrong thing to say, but the things that didn't work for me, I passed on to other people because that's all I knew.
Yeah.
There wasn't the proliferation of information available, 35 years ago. If you wanted to learn about it, you read books, you read magazines, or you went in search of respected coaches to learn from them.
Uh-huh.
And you paid for lessons and you took away what you took away and then you applied what you applied, what you knew or what you thought you knew. And when I was teaching full time, I think it's a big distinction between, I think earlier on in my life I was teaching
Right.
for the first 5 or 6 years. Then I realized when I got on tour, it's much more about coaching. So teaching, you're kind of telling people what to do. Coaching is much more of a collaboration between coach and player. And I think
Absolutely.
I learned quite early on that you have to, as a coach, view the game through the player's eyes rather than your own. So you've got to be very adaptable because every guy I've ever worked with, every girl I've ever worked with, they see the game slightly differently.
Of course,
So
yeah.
you've got to kind of find out what motivates them, how they see the game, how they want to play the game. And then as a coach, it's all about how you bring out the best in what they already do and, develop their existing skills, polish their existing skills, but also help them develop some new ones. So, I guess looking back on tour, without real, I mean, I studied NLP and whatever 30 odd years ago, so I was into the mind game, I guess, a while back. But I soon learned that my job was really not to fix people's golf swings before they went out to play, but to get them tournament ready. So it was almost like a tournament prep, excuse me, a tournament preparation coach.
Uh-huh.
And you had to do, I mean, you learned little tricks for certain players who didn't like the way their swing looked at the top of the backswing. You would just slightly adjust the camera angle so it looked like the club was where they wanted it to be.
Brilliant. I love that. That's great
talk about
advice as
mind
well for other
games.
coaches. That's
But,
awesome.
if you showed them the position they didn't like, I can't play, confidence was shot. You turn the camera a little bit this way or that, and all of a sudden it looks very different. That's it. Yeah, that's exactly where it needs to be. And it was no different, but they believed it was, and that's all that mattered.
Wow. And then do you have a way that, I'm trying to think of the phrase, that not necessarily check what the player's doing, but do you have, I guess, a means where you try to figure out where the challenges are in their game? That might be just going out for 9 holes or whatever.
Absolutely.
Is there certain things you'll do?
Ask a lot of questions, which I don't think enough coaches do. I think we're all too quick as an industry to jump in and tell people what they're doing wrong and what they should be doing right.
Yeah.
I made an arse of myself doing that once years ago, and I vowed never to do it again. I think it was an old Scottish Open at Gleneagles, and a guy, Gordon Brand Jr., who's sadly no longer with us. Gordon became a great friend, and he was someone I really admired as a player. He played in Ryder Cups and won 8 or 9 times on tour. And the guys he beat were Seve, Faldo, Langer, Sam Torres, all these guys.
He's a phenomenal golfer, eh? Really phenomenal.
Yeah. And we're at Scottish Open at Gleneagles, I think it was Scottish Open, or a Johnny Walker, I can't remember. How'd you get on today, Gordon? It's a Thursday lunchtime. Yeah, crap. Okay, glad I asked. He said, in fact, I'm just going for some lunch. What are you doing in half an hour? Could you have a look in the range? I said, yeah, love to, absolutely. So went down the range and he hit about 5 or 6 beautiful, big, high, soft draws and turned around and said, well, what do you think then? What are your thoughts? I said, well, what about you? It looks pretty good to me. He said, it might look good to you, but I'm trying to fade it. So I didn't ask what his intention was. And that was a lesson I learned very quickly. And he actually revealed about 10 years later that he wasn't trying to fade it. But the point he was making was, you didn't ask me what I was trying to do.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. So there was somebody who knew exactly what he wanted to do, but he was expecting me, or hoping, I think expecting rather than hoping, that I would ask him the question, what is it you're trying to do with the golf ball here? Because Gordon was a brilliant shot maker. He was more into shots than swings.
Right.
And you ask him to hit any shot, and he could do it. Can you fade one? Well, high, low, or medium? Oh, okay. Can you draw it? Well, yeah. Can you hit a low draw? How low? So he was very much into visualizing shots and then creating them. And I think all the best players I've ever worked with have been very much that way, rather than overly technical. So I've never been hugely technical. As I say, I tried to get technical in my own game, that kind of ruined me. So I learned that golf's about playing the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always been a firm believer in that.
And I guess
I'm all for technology. There's some amazing technology out there. I use TrackMan on a daily basis, but I use it as a measuring device to measure what the ball's doing and what essentially impact is creating certain ball flights. Yeah. I mean, there's so much AI out there now, and the one thing that, as far as I can see, it doesn't do is ask you lots of questions. And I think questions, apart from anything, will focus your attention, but they'll also make you think a little bit more clearly about what it is you're trying to do in the first place.
Yeah, because that is effectively giving you, in some respects, the answers, i.e. the data that you may be looking for, but it's not necessarily, well, it isn't obviously looking at your golf swing and understanding how you got into the impact position or anything else like that.
Well, absolutely. Plus, any data that is available is outcome data, obviously. So unless you know what the person is trying to do, where's the context?
Yeah, because back to your example earlier about Gordon Brand, you could be standing hitting a high draw when you're actually looking to hit a low cut, and it just happens to be, TrackMan, the data there is fantastic for a high draw, but actually you're trying to do something completely different.
Yeah, so until you know what the player's intention is, you're just passing judgment on aesthetics, really.
Yeah.
You
And
see
actually,
you see it all too often online. Oh, the coach is, oh, I'm working with this player, and just he's doing so well. Their backswing's so much better, and this is better, and that's better. Right? Okay, maybe so. What's the ball doing? I'm much more interested in golf shots and golf swings. In your scorecard, there's no box to describe what the top of your backswing looked like, because that doesn't really matter.
no, and you're sounding very like some of the great coaches, which I know you are as well, but like Butch Harmon stuff, that's what he talks about, isn't it? The ball tells him everything he needs to know.
What does the golf swing do? What's the purpose of a golf swing? It's to
Yes,
create golf shots.
it's to create an
The shot
outcome.
has to come first. All too often, I think coaches or teachers jump in trying to change aesthetics without really having a discussion with the player about how they see the game. Do you see a fade? If you see a fade all the time, you're going to struggle to draw it. We tend to create what we see.
Yeah,
If you've seen the ball move left to right in the air, your brain and body are going to go to work to make that happen. So if you're
absolutely.
asking someone to draw when you've got a very strong kind of fade by swing pattern, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that personally as well. That's for sure. And just, on your own sort of philosophies, Gary, I noticed you've got 3 books that you've co-written.
Yeah, we've done
And
3
I'd love
books.
you to talk about
We
those.
started the first one just about 7 years ago.
Uh-huh.
2018, we released the Lost Art of Putting, Karl Morris and I. And then a couple of years later, we did the Lost Art of Playing Golf. And then the last one we did was the Lost Art of the Short Game. And when we released the first one, we actually did it at the Scottish Open. Martin Gilbert, the former CEO of Aberdeen Essay, was a client, and I was an ambassador for them for a number of years, and we were talking
Wow,
about the book. He said, "Oh, if you want to use the press centre, the media centre at the Scottish Open, you can use that. Use that." So, very kind of you.
that'll help.
Yeah, that'll help. So someone said, how many books do you expect to sell? I said, I've got no idea. I've got no idea how it works. I've got no expectation because I've got no experience of writing or selling books. So I don't know. And Karl and I joked at the time that we may end up with some very expensive but very nice business cards.
They're quite thick as well.
But they are, yeah. But yeah, no, they've done really well, and we've had amazing feedback from all levels of golfers all around the world. So I don't know exactly how many we've sold, but I think the number's in excess of 30,000 across the 3 books, which is, I guess, exceeded our expectations.
Wow, that's incredible. What an achievement that is. That's
Yeah, well,
awesome.
apparently 95% of books that are published sell less than 1,000 copies.
Yeah, I can imagine. I would have
We're
thought it
not
was
all,
hundreds rather than even thousands.
yeah, sure. We're not all going to be Wilbur Smith or John Bishop, but if we sell a few, we're doing all right.
30,000's amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So they're still available on Amazon, and the Kindles have gone really well as well, actually, because a lot of people want to read books digitally these days. I prefer a proper book that I can actually hold in my hand and flick the pages. I guess because I grew up in a house full of books, it's no
Yeah,
surprise I like books.
no, absolutely. And then within those, those lessons and I guess observations of people, you talk about intention, attention as well. So
Yeah.
do you want to talk about those pieces and just what people should be thinking, can be thinking about when they're playing golf?
Yeah. I mean, Carl and I have worked together for quite a long time. We've known each other a long time, worked together quite a long time. We've done all sorts of schools and master classes, and still continue to do that. And we've done a couple of digital programs as well. The putting one, and the latest one is very much what you're talking about. What we believe are the big 3, the mental game big 3, which are intention, attention, and attitude. So without a clear intention, you're just for every shot you want to play, you're just swinging a bit of steel about.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
clarity of intention is essential. I mean, without clear intention, where's your starting point? So, and I think that's often overlooked. Again, going back to the Gordon story, I didn't ask what his intention was, so
Yeah,
I got that wrong.
and I think, I mean,
Well,
I'm
first
no,
turn.
I'm no great golfer, but there are a number of times that I'll hit a shot and you walk away from it and you think, what was I actually trying to do there?
Yeah,
I can't even remember what I was trying to do. I don't know whether I was trying to fade it, draw it, where I was trying to hit it, anything.
probably because you were thinking about or trying to figure out which of the 14 different swing thoughts you were going to use on that swing.
Yeah, never mind the previous hole.
No, exactly. A question we ask in the books and we ask on a daily basis is, does the swing create the shot or does the shot create the swing? 9 times out of 10, people initially say, well, the swing obviously creates the shot, but then you ask them to hit a high slice and a low hook,
Yeah,
and do you use the same swing to create these two different shots? Well, no, of course you don't. So therefore, the shot or the intention to create a certain shot is what determines how your brain and body then do to make that or to bring that to life to make it happen.
and I'd imagine, Gary, when you're standing behind the people and you've asked them to hit, say, a low draw,
Yeah.
and they hit it, they're probably not asking you how did my backswing look, right?
No, absolutely.
They're just
So what do you
interested
do
in the
when you have
shot
to
and the
bend the right
outcome.
knee? Do you have to take it a little bit more on the inside? Do you have to flex your right knee a little bit more, or whatever you think you've got to do? Ultimately, we're all pretty good at hitting it out of the shite. We're also pretty good hitting it into the shite in the first place. But once we get in there, we kind of know what to do because the shot forces your hand.
Yeah,
It doesn't give you too many options. You have to start it way over there and bring it back that way, or start it left and hook it, or cut it, or fade it, or slice it. Whatever you got to do. So
yeah.
how do you hit it low under a branch? Well, your brain and body, given a clear intention, then go to work to make that happen.
Yeah, you're not halfway up your backswing thinking, oh, my grip's a bit strong for this low shot. What's going on
No,
here?
exactly. Oh, my right elbow's popped out a wee bit. I didn't quite turn my hips there. Was that a wee bit on the inside? None of that comes into the equation. You
But then
just
you stand in a tee and you're standing there thinking all kinds of nonsense. It's
you
crazy.
probably have too many options. That's why.
Yeah.
But you don't choose one because we get so wrapped up in the technicalities of how we swing the golf club, but we don't actually. I don't think many golfers view their golf clubs as tools, the tools of their trade. If I was a carpenter, I'd learn how to use hammers, chisels, planes, saws, all sorts of different tools. And I was saying to someone the other day that, it doesn't matter asking about should I get new clubs. I said, well, you can spend as much as you want on golf clubs, but just remember the one thing that you won't get with it is a user's manual. You got to,
Absolutely.
as a young boy learning how to play the game. Yeah, my dad taught me the basics of how to grip and how to kind of hit the ball essentially. But then I was kind of left to my own devices until I was a little bit older. You just learned, I learned how to play golf by playing golf. I don't think enough people do that. When you go to the range, are you working on your swing? Or are you working on shots? Living in Scotland, we're going to have to play all sorts of different shots on any given day. But if all you're
Yeah.
doing is working on your backswing or whatever, is that preparing you for what you're going to face on the golf course? Not really.
I was thinking the other day about just short game in general, and when I first started playing golf, I didn't have access to a golf course all the time, so I'd go and
Yeah,
play golf in inverted commas on a football pitch or just
yeah,
the side of a football pitch.
yeah,
And obviously, you get rose tinted glasses looking back, but my short game and chipping and just creativity at that time was way beyond what it is now. And I was
yeah,
like 12. I could
yeah,
hit so many different shots, and now you go to the side of a green and you're looking at thinking, what do I do here? Whereas
yeah.
when you were 12 years old, there was no second thought. You just pulled
No,
the club and hit it.
absolutely. And you probably had a very clear picture of what you wanted the ball to do.
Yeah,
Because
that's a good way to
we tend to
describe it,
think
actually.
we
Yeah,
think in pictures. I'm sure you played other sports before you played golf.
Uh-huh.
So what sports did you play just out of interest?
Football, rugby,
Right.
badminton, those kind of things.
So when you're playing rugby and football, what's your attention on?
Where are you trying to hit it?
The ball.
Where are you trying to run? Catch
Yeah.
it, run, kick it. Where's the ball going to go? I'm not thinking about technique when I'm trying to kick a rugby ball running.
No.
Last thing you're thinking about.
Well, if
how much is my backswing?
You get clattered off the pitch.
Yeah, can you imagine Finn Russell halfway down his downswing thinking, didn't quite get it back and playing there.
Yeah, no, I didn't quite come from remember to clear your hips and follow through and hold your finish and keep your head down, and no, it doesn't work like that, does it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So once you've got a clear intention, you've then got somewhere to place your attention, which is on the creation of that shot. Yeah. Now, there are a million ways and a million places you can place your attention, whether it's an internal focus on a body part that you want to move in a certain way, or are you playing, are you trying to hit it towards a target? Are you drawing it towards a target? Are you fading it towards a target? Are you trying to hit it to the left half of the green or the right half of the green? Are you trying to hit the left half of the fairway, the right half of the fairway? Or if you're just trying to hit it down the fairway somewhere, that's the best you'll ever achieve.
Yeah.
Because there's 1,000 ways to do that. So given that's the case, your brain will then start to create a very loose motor pattern for your body to follow. But if you've got a much clearer intention, okay, I want to hit a high draw here, I want to hit a low fade here, then your brain starts to open up different neural pathways for your body to react to.
Absolutely.
So clarity of attention is so important on so many different levels.
Yeah.
And for me, so you've got intention, you've got attention. I mean, we could talk for days about these. And the last one, the kind of glue for me that binds it all together is your attitude. Everyone who ever worked with tells me they've got a great attitude in the golf course. And then, which is why I used to go and watch them play in tournaments rather than just leave they walk away from the range, go at the first tee, I go and have a cup of tea, they come back 4.5 hours later. How'd you play today? I played crap. Oh, right, okay, did you? Well, I've been looking at your stats. And yeah, you hit 11 fairways from 14 greens. Did putt very well. No, I didn't actually putt very well. I played okay, actually, now you mention it. Or I would say, well, I actually watched you play 9 holes and you didn't play badly today. You mishit a couple of iron shots, you came up 2 yards short on 2 holes, end up in bunkers. Yeah. So they weren't really bad shots, were they? No. They were a couple of yards out. Yeah, okay. So let's be realistic about this. Golf, as you know, is a very emotional game. And as soon as we start to form opinions about outcomes rather than dealing in facts, I'd much rather deal in facts and opinions. That's why I like TrackMan, because it doesn't know how to form an opinion. Just this is what happened. Yeah. It's because no emotion attached to it. Down, or your left hip didn't clear properly, or whatever it was. We make up all these stories about what the cause of it was. But if ultimately when we're playing golf, we see and feel effects and we react to them. For me, my job is to trace it back beyond the effect and figure out what's the root cause of that. And ask the person I'm working with, okay, in your opinion, what do you think caused that shot? Rather than me just telling them what to do, because generally speaking, people don't like being told what to do.
Yeah, and it's probably started. I mean, every golf hole, of course, is another experience, but so many times those thought patterns that you get into are way back beyond the shot that you've messed up. So you could get to the third shot of par 5, but on the tee you've been thinking birdie here, so you become ultra aggressive on the pitch shot when actually the pin's really tucked and you shouldn't be going after it. But it's still been your mindset from the off that you're going to do that.
Or the last time I played this hole.
Last time I played this hole, kicking birdie.
And then, if I don't make birdie here, I'm already 2 over par. I've only played 3 holes. Oh, God, if I don't birdie this. Oh, right, okay. God, it's into the wind today. I might actually bogey this. And the next 3 holes, they're in the wind as well. And I normally don't play the 8th and the 9th very well. So you're so far in the future. Guess what? no wonder you're not going to play this shot well when your brain's not thinking about, we've all been told you've got to be present to play your best golf. You've got to be right here, right now, in the present moment. Great. Easier said than done. The human brain, as we've learned over the years, is brilliant at time travel. It loves to dwell in the past. Last time I did this, that happened, or this happened. It loves to project into the future. If I do this, if I do that, because I don't think the outcome of a shot isn't where the damage is done. The damage is done when we start thinking about the repercussions of the outcome of this shot.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
So if I miss this green, oh right, I'm not very good at getting up and down. If I can't, whatever you do, don't miss it long because it's quite difficult to get it up and down from there. So what happens? You leave it short in the front bunker. Oh no! Oh God! Last time I was in this bunker, I knifed it in the face. It took 3 more to get out. You can see what's going on in people's heads, and no
It's
wonder
carnage all around, isn't
actually
it?
concentrate on this shot. Their attention is all over the place. So that's why attention is such a key component to any golf shot. And Karl and I have discussed this at great length, probably way too many times than we should have or need to, but we keep coming back to it. And we found that one of the best ways to get your attention in the right place at the right time is to ask a question. So if I asked you a question, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Porridge. Of course,
Right.
I'm Scottish.
Well, there you go, absolutely. I bet you can see it, smell it, and almost taste it.
Absolutely.
So if I ask a simple question, I've directed your attention somewhere very specific.
Yep.
So, questions we like to get people to ask are, okay, what is the shot here?
What am I trying to
Unless
do?
you know what the shot is, don't even bother going to your bag to pull a club.
Yeah.
Because it could be one of 3 clubs.
Yeah, it tends to be we'll get to the ball, laser out, not even assess the lie.
No.
Right, it's 115, it's gap wedge or it's wedge, depending whether it's downwind or into the wind. Job done.
Yeah. No thought about what is it going to be. Are you going to flight it down? You're going to flight it up. Is it a left to right wind? Where's the flag? Where do I want to leave this? What's a really good shot look like? That's another great question.
Yeah.
So until you know what a really good shot looks like, you're unlikely to be able to play that shot.
Coming back to your point earlier, what creates the shot?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the shot.
Intention, attention, and attitude. You don't really need to go much beyond that little triangle there. Now, it sounds like 3 words. It could be a very simple concept. There's obviously many layers to that. But if you keep going back to that kind of safe harbor, if you like, of intention, attention, attitude, then you'd probably not do too badly.
Absolutely. And then, Gary, just on how you're, I guess, helping people through that. You obviously do one-to-one coaching, but I noticed that you've got a setup where you take people through a more personalised experience in groups. So I'd love you to talk a little bit about that and how it can be different to what people experience in general, sort of golf lessons.
I've learned over the years that group environments are brilliant in learning environments. They're really, Karl and I have done numerous golf schools. We've got one coming up in April, May, can't remember the dates exactly. At Archfield, we've been doing that every year for the last I don't know how many years. We've done a few abroad. I do some in Ireland, do some in Germany, Holland, looking to do some more as well. I just think they're such a great environment because everyone is learning. Everyone's there because they want to learn. They want to learn something rather than just get better. Most people who come for a one-to-one lesson, they want to get better instantly. So when someone comes in and says, okay, so what would be a good outcome from today? Well, I just want to hit my driver, it's kind of 270, 280 straight down the middle. And I'll go, right, okay, if you just give me a second and pretend I'm looking for something. Well, I'm just looking for my magic wand. I'm sure it's charging up somewhere. Yeah. And they've got an 85 mile an hour club head speed. But they tell me they hit it 300 yards on a good day. Well, yeah, that's probably not going to be happening too often.
No.
So I think in a one-to-one lesson, people want a quick fix, but in a group environment over a couple of days or even an afternoon or a morning, everyone's there to learn something that they can then take away and work on
Yeah.
with the goal of getting better at it over time. So people who buy into golf schools are much more about learning new skills rather than quick fixes. Now, quick fixes, can they help? They can help short term, but I don't believe they work long term.
And you're also creating an experience that people, experiences are what people remember, not necessarily what someone's just said to them during
Absolutely.
a conversation, but the actual experience will immerse it even
but all
more.
of the best holidays you've had, they might not have been to the best of places, but you're with great people and everyone's having a great time.
Yeah.
That's what you remember. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Experiences are so important, and I think that the longer you live, the more important they become to you. And the
And
more
I mean, you're talking about Archerfield there. So do you host? You mentioned you go elsewhere. Do you host most of your coaching and experiences at Archerfield?
coaching done at Archerfield. Yeah, for a thousand reasons. The facilities are as good as anywhere on the planet. They really are. I've been lucky enough to travel the world a fair bit over the last 30, 35 years, and there aren't many places that do it better than we do at Archfield. I mean, we've got great short game areas, the range is fantastic, performance centres, world class, the golf courses are great. It's a lovely place to go for a nice experience, absolutely.
Yeah, and some amazing views as well
I
when you're out in the golf course.
do for a couple of days if you want to go and play a bit of golf and learn some new skills, which is, what Karl and I have done for the last few years. We've had people from, it's quite strange. I think the last couple of schools, we had one person from Edinburgh, but we had people from Holland, Germany, Belgium, south of England, Wales, Ireland,
My
Denmark,
goodness.
all over the
Wow.
place. Yeah.
That's incredible.
But very few local people.
There you go.
Yeah. So, yes, we're obviously not interesting enough for local people, but it's almost like the further you are away from somewhere, the more exotic it appears to be.
Well, Scotland's weather can be exotic now and again, so that'll keep them on their toes.
As we witnessed on Friday there in that storm.
Yeah, that looked pretty wild. Yeah, that looked crazy. So, Gary, in terms of what people can do for themselves, thinking about what you've spoken about and coming away from the conversation here, what would you like them to take away, and then how could they get in touch with you as well?
Yeah, so if you go to the website performanceprinciples.co.uk, booking information's there. Links to the digital programs as well, the Lost Art of Putting Performance and the Big Three mental game. But also we basically, I'm not one for creating absolute definitive plans. The best way to figure out, because everyone's different, and yes, there needs to be an element of structure if you're going to improve, but there's got to be flexibility within that structure. So for me, the best way is to send an email, pick up the phone, get in touch, have a chat, and then see how we can work together going forward. I mean, I do some online stuff. I do some long distance stuff. I started working with a couple of college teams in America, which has been great fun. So I'm looking to develop that a little bit more. I'm going to do a little bit more of that, hopefully with student athletes who are going to the States or are already there. So yeah, that's something that I'm really quite keen to develop, because for me, I guess looking back to when I was 17, 18 years old, there were very few proper golf coaches around. So everybody knew, I was very fortunate. I had some coaching as a young man or a boy with David Hush down at North Berwick when he was there for many years, and from Bob Torrance as well. So I was lucky early on.
Yeah.
But it was all kind of technical stuff and nothing about the performance aspect. You just had to kind of learn that the hard way, and you can do it that way, but it can take a long time. But I think had I had access to a performance coach who'd been around for a number of years and worked with a lot of really good different players, that I think that learning process would have been a whole lot quicker and a whole lot easier and a whole lot less painful.
Yeah, because it's easy to go down rabbit holes chasing things
Oh
that
yeah,
you think are the right way to go. Whereas if you can speak to someone, you can spend a day with them, just watch what they're doing, or they observe you, then you can absolutely accelerate your progress.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of information out there on YouTube and TikTok and whatever. And some of it's useful, some less so, but the majority of it is contradictory, complicated, and confusing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a lot more people giving golf lessons or doing golf coaching than ever before, but I'm not sure handicaps and standard golf's improving.
Not in the evidence of what I've seen.
No,
that's for sure.
Likewise. I mean, there's so much information out there, it's just so confusing. And people say, oh, I was watching this video on YouTube the other day, and right, okay, I'm just going to stop you there for a second. What did you pay for that out of interest? Oh, nothing, it was free. Okay. So how much value do you think there is in free information? And who's actually benefiting from this?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean,
not often the end user. I mean, it's a lot of well-intentioned people doing what they think is the right thing. But just because you've done a kind of one-day online certification course in a certain aspect of the game, that doesn't make you an expert, I'm afraid. I used to travel to Florida to go and get coaching in the layoff season. So, I'd go to find an expert and, I'd fly happy around the world to go spend a couple of days with them.
Yeah.
That's proper learning. Being told what to do is the lowest form of learning. Collaborating with someone who understands what you want to get out of the game and what you want to put in, or you're prepared to put into the game, how much time you're prepared to put into it. Collaborating is so much. It's a conversation that's just two-way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not the greatest golfer in the world. I play off too, but when I play with some,
5%.
Well, sorry,
you're in the top 5% globally if you play off too.
Well, it doesn't feel like it, but I play with people sometimes, and I don't want to say what handicap they are, but I hear them speaking about what they're working on and or what they've watched on YouTube, and I'm completely bemused because literally, they are struggling to get around the golf course, but they're listening to nonsense online effectively.
But they sound
it's
like
crazy.
About.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they sound like they're very knowledgeable, but they can't. Knowledge is one thing. I was once told knowledge is power. That's bollocks. Pardon my French. Application of knowledge is where the real magic is, because we can all gather up all this information. There's a big difference between information, knowledge, and wisdom. And I think most people get stuck at the information bit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
That's very superficial. Information is superficial. If you go down a couple of layers or a few layers, you might eventually come out with some wisdom that you can actually transfer from concept into a real life application on the golf course.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, Gary, I'm conscious of your time. You've been really generous with your time here. Thanks so much for coming on. And I'll put in the show notes your contact details for people to follow up. So I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Not at all. My pleasure. It's been a good chat. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks for listening again, folks. I'm sure you enjoyed hearing about Gary's story. And do look out for those books that Gary's published. I'll have them in the show notes. For next week's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Lloyd Saltman, and I'm really looking forward to getting that one out as well. In the meantime, I'd love you to like, share and subscribe to the podcast, and you'll hear from me soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.